Hey everyone, welcome back to Cheating Tales Lab. Thanks for joining us today. We've got a gripping story lined up that I think you're really going to enjoy. So let's jump right into it. The year is 2018, in the small, picturesque town of Oak Ridge, nestled just beyond the hustle of New York City. Known for its beautiful, winding streets and tight-knit community, Oak Ridge is the kind of place where everyone knows everyone, or so they think. Our main character, Daniel Green, is a local school teacher. Now, Daniel is your classic good guy, genuine, easygoing, and well-loved by his students and colleagues. But this story is anything but simple, and it all begins on what seemed to be an ordinary day. Daniel's life has always been about routine. Every morning, he wakes up to the same view of the quiet neighborhood from his modest yet cozy suburban home. He lives with his wife, Claire, who's an aspiring artist working part-time at a local gallery. Their relationship, from the outside, it looks perfect. They're the couple everyone admires, the kind that makes people say, they're just made for each other. But, as with most things, there's more to their story than meets the eye. Now, Claire is, let's say, spirited. She's got this vibrant energy, a creative spark that's made Daniel fall for her over and over again. But lately, things have felt off. Their conversations have become shorter, and the affectionate gestures, once so frequent, have started to disappear. They've been married for 6 years, and while they've hit rough patches before, something about this time feels different to Daniel. But he brushes it off, telling himself that Claire's just going through a phase with her art, or maybe feeling overwhelmed with her gallery work. One chilly autumn morning, Daniel is up early, getting ready for another day of teaching. Claire is still asleep, so he moves quietly, grabs his coffee, and heads to work. But as he pulls out of the driveway, he notices something strange. Claire's car keys are still hanging by the door. She always takes her car on Fridays, heading out to the gallery to finish the week's work. He pauses for a second, just a bit confused, but then chalks it up to her maybe needing a break from the routine. Throughout his day, though, that nagging feeling keeps tapping at the back of his mind. He loves Claire, but they haven't been connecting the way they used to. And recently, her late-night work sessions at the gallery have become more frequent. Daniel tries to focus on his students, but he can't help but feel that something just isn't right. Little does he know, this sense of unease is only the beginning. When Daniel returns home that evening, the house is unusually quiet. Claire isn't in the kitchen, which is where he usually finds her when she's cooking up something special. Instead, he finds her in the living room, sketching with a kind of intensity he's rarely seen. He greets her, but she barely looks up, giving only a faint hey in return. He tries to make small talk, asking about her day, but she's distant, distracted. She even forgets to ask him about his day, something that would have been unthinkable a few months ago. Now, if there's one thing Daniel has always valued in their marriage, it's the open and honest conversations they share. Claire, on the other hand, is a bit more closed off when something's bothering her. But tonight, Daniel senses an opportunity to finally talk about what's been going on. Claire, he begins, I feel like we've been drifting. Is everything okay? First, she doesn't respond, as if she didn't hear him. But then she sighs and puts down her sketch pad. Yeah, everything's fine, Daniel. I've just been busy with work. That's all. Her tone is dismissive, almost annoyed, which throws him off. She usually opens up after a bit of coaxing, but tonight she's different, closed off in a way that feels new. Daniel knows it's not worth pushing, so he decides to give her space, hoping that whatever she's dealing with will eventually come to light. But days turn into weeks, and that distance between them only seems to grow. He tries to be supportive, offering to help her at the gallery, suggesting they go out for dinner to unwind. But Claire declines every time, saying she's just too tired or that she's working on something important. Then, one weekend, Daniel notices something peculiar. He's cleaning up the kitchen when he finds a receipt on the counter. It's from a fancy restaurant, the kind they only go to on special occasions. But the date on the receipt isn't familiar. It's from a night she claimed to be working late at the gallery. Now, normally, Daniel would brush this off as some mix-up, but something about the situation doesn't sit right with him. Curiosity gets the better of him, and he decides to ask Claire about it. "Hey, I found this receipt. Did you go out for dinner the other night?" He tries to keep his tone casual, but she seems startled, almost defensive. "Oh, that? Yeah, I went out with some friends from the gallery. We just needed a break, you know?" Her explanation is plausible enough, but Daniel can't shake the feeling that she's holding something back. And just like that, a seed of doubt is planted. Over the next few days, Daniel finds himself paying more attention, noticing little things that he would have overlooked before, like how Claire's been spending more time on her phone, or how she's suddenly started dressing up a bit more when she leaves for her late nights at the gallery. One evening, he decides to test his suspicions by suggesting he pick her up after work, but she quickly declines, saying she's got too much going on. It's in these small, almost imperceptible changes that Daniel begins to see the cracks in their relationship. He wants to trust her, he really does, but every time she brushes him off or changes the subject, he's left wondering if there's more going on than just work stress. Just when he's about to confront her directly, something unexpected happens. Daniel's at a grocery store, picking up some ingredients for dinner, when he sees her across the aisle. At first, he's surprised. Claire usually hates grocery shopping, and she's told him she's been swamped with work. But here she is, casually browsing, a faint smile on her face, and standing next to her is a man he doesn't recognize. Daniel's heart skips a beat as he spots Claire down the aisle, standing beside a man he's never seen before. He can't quite make out their conversation, but there's something about the way they're talking, close, personal. His mind races with a mix of emotions: confusion, suspicion, and a tiny glimmer of hope that maybe it's all just a misunderstanding. He wants to believe she's here with a friend, a colleague maybe, but the sight stirs up feelings he can't ignore. He decides to walk over, forcing a smile and pretending to be surprised. "Claire? Didn't expect to see you here." She freezes, her eyes widening just slightly before she composes herself. "Oh, hey, Daniel. This is, Lucas," she says, her tone a bit too cheerful, like she's overcompensating. The man, Lucas, looks caught off guard but quickly offers a polite smile, extending his hand. "Nice to meet you, Daniel. I've heard a lot about you." Daniel shakes his hand, studying Lucas's face for any clues, but the man remains unreadable. He glances at Claire, who seems unusually tense. "Funny running into you here," Daniel says, trying to keep his tone light. "Thought you were swamped at the gallery?" Claire laughs a little too quickly. "Oh, yeah, I was just running some errands with Lucas. He's been helping me with some new art projects." Her explanation doesn't sit well with him, but Daniel nods, not wanting to make a scene. He watches as Claire and Lucas exchange a quick glance, and that's when he notices it. Just a fleeting look, but it's enough to make him feel like he's intruding on something private. After a bit of awkward small talk, Claire and Lucas excuse themselves, leaving Daniel standing alone in the aisle, feeling a strange hollowness creeping in. He doesn't want to jump to conclusions, but his gut tells him that something is definitely wrong. He remembers the late nights, the strange receipt, the sudden shift in her behavior. Putting all these pieces together, he starts to feel a sinking realization settle in his chest. As days pass, Daniel finds himself constantly replaying that moment at the grocery store, wondering if he's overthinking things or if there's truly something going on. His mind is filled with questions, doubts, and, most of all, a painful sense of betrayal. Yet, he tries to hold on, to push those thoughts aside, convincing himself that maybe it's all in his head. But the doubt gnaws at him, refusing to let go. One evening, he decides he can't stay in the dark any longer. After Claire falls asleep, he quietly grabs her phone from the nightstand, his heart pounding with guilt. It feels wrong, invasive, but he tells himself he just needs some reassurance. As he scrolls through her messages, he finds several from Lucas. Some are innocent, talking about art, the gallery, but then he stumbles upon a message that stops him cold. "Tonight was amazing." One text from Lucas reads, "Can't wait to see you again." Daniel feels like the floor has dropped out from under him. His hands shake, and for a moment, he just sits there, staring at the screen. A mix of anger, confusion, and heartbreak building inside him. He carefully puts the phone back and lies awake, staring at the ceiling, trying to process what he's just discovered. It's like he's been living in someone else's life, a life that's been unraveling right under his nose. The next morning, he's quiet, distant, and Claire notices. She asks if he's feeling okay, but he just nods, keeping his responses short. He knows he should confront her, demand answers, but part of him isn't ready to face the truth. Instead, he watches her, searching for any sign that could give him a clue to what's really going on. Over the next few days, the tension between them grows. Every little interaction feels loaded with unspoken words and hidden meanings. One night, Daniel decides he can't keep pretending anymore. He sits her down in the living room, his expression serious. "Claire, we need to talk." She looks at him, her face a mix of surprise and apprehension. "What's wrong?" "I saw your messages," he says, keeping his voice steady. "Between you and Lucas." For a moment, she doesn't say anything. Then, she lets out a shaky breath, her shoulders slumping as she realizes there's no way to hide it. "Daniel, I didn't mean for this to happen," she begins, her voice barely a whisper. His heart breaks as he listens to her, every word feeling like a knife twisting deeper. She tries to explain herself, to justify her actions, but all he hears are excuses. "It just happened," she says, as if that could somehow make it better. "I felt so alone, Daniel. You've been so wrapped up in work, and Lucas was there for me. Don't you dare blame this on me," he snaps, the anger finally breaking through. "I've been working hard for us, for our future. You had a choice, Claire, and you chose to betray me." There's a long silence between them, filled with the weight of everything left unsaid. She looks down, tears brimming in her eyes, but he can't bring himself to comfort her. Instead, he stands up and walks away, leaving her alone with her guilt. The following days are a blur for Daniel. He tries to go about his routine, but nothing feels the same. Everywhere he looks, he's reminded of what he's lost, of the life they once shared. He can't escape the memories, and the pain feels endless. Eventually, he decides to confide in his close friend, Sarah. She listens patiently as he pours out everything, from the strange encounters to the messages on Claire's phone. "I don't know what to do, Sarah," he says, his voice weary. "Part of me still loves her, but I don't know if I can ever forgive her." Sarah places a comforting hand on his shoulder. "Daniel, you don't have to make any decisions right now. Take your time, figure out what's best for you. You deserve someone who values you, who won't throw away what you've built together." Her words provide some comfort, but Daniel knows the path ahead won't be easy. He feels trapped between his love for Claire and the betrayal that's torn his heart apart. Every day, he grapples with his emotions, searching for answers, for some semblance of peace. And that's where we'll leave it for now. If you're enjoying the story so far, don't forget to like, share, and comment below. And if you want to keep up with all our latest stories, make sure to subscribe to the channel and hit that notification bell. The days following Daniel's confrontation with Claire are like living in a fog. He spends hours lost in thought, replaying everything that's happened, wondering if there was anything he could have done differently. But every memory of them laughing, planning their future, or simply sitting together in silence feels tainted. There's no easy way forward, and he knows it. One evening, Daniel receives a message from Claire, saying she wants to talk. He's reluctant, still feeling the sting of betrayal, but part of him knows that they can't avoid each other forever. So, he agrees to meet her at a local cafe they used to go to back when they were dating. The place is quiet, with only a few patrons scattered around, and the soft murmur of conversation gives them a sense of privacy. Claire arrives looking worn, like she hasn't slept well in days. Her eyes are tired, and there's a nervousness in her posture that Daniel hasn't seen before. He watches her for a moment, feeling a strange mix of resentment and sadness. This is the woman he's loved for years, yet sitting across from her now, she feels like a stranger. "Daniel," she begins, her voice shaky, "I know there's nothing I can say that will fix this, but I want you to know that I'm sorry. I made a mistake, a terrible one, and I'll regret it for the rest of my life. Her words hang in the air between them, heavy with the weight of everything they've lost. Daniel wants to believe her, to hold on to the hope that maybe they can salvage what's left. But he can't shake the image of her with Lucas, the man who's come between them. "Why, Claire?" he asks quietly, his voice filled with hurt. "Why would you throw everything away like that?" She looks down, fiddling with her hands. "I don't know, Daniel. I felt lost, like I was invisible in our marriage. Lucas made me feel seen, understood. But I know that's no excuse. I was selfish, and I hurt you, and I'm so sorry." Daniel sighs, feeling a pang of frustration. It's hard to hear her say she felt invisible when he spent years doing everything he could to make her happy. "Claire, I've always been here. You could have talked to me, told me how you were feeling. Instead, you went to someone else." She nods, her eyes brimming with tears. "I know, and I hate myself for it. I've destroyed our marriage, and I don't deserve forgiveness. But I wanted you to know that I'm ending things with Lucas. I've told him it's over." This revelation hits Daniel hard. Part of him feels a flicker of relief, a small glimmer of hope that maybe they can rebuild. But another part of him feels only bitterness. It's too little, too late. She's already crossed a line, one that he's not sure he can ever forget. "I need time," he says finally, standing up. "I don't know if I can forgive you, Claire, but I need some space to figure things out." With that, he walks away, leaving her sitting alone, watching him go. As the days pass, Daniel finds himself in a strange limbo. Claire moves out, giving him the space he asked for, and he throws himself into work, hoping that the distraction will numb the pain. But every time he comes home to an empty house, he's reminded of everything he's lost. The walls feel colder, the silence heavier, and he can't escape the memories that haunt him. One night, he decides to go for a walk, hoping that the fresh air will help clear his mind. As he wanders through the familiar streets, he spots a figure in the distance, standing under a street lamp. It's Lucas. The sight of him sends a surge of anger through Daniel, and before he knows it, he's walking straight toward him, fists clenched. Lucas notices him and takes a step back, clearly caught off guard. "Daniel, I didn't expect to see you here." "Yeah, I bet you didn't," Daniel replies, his voice low and filled with barely restrained rage. "You have some nerve showing your face around here after what you've done." Lucas shifts uncomfortably, his gaze flickering away. "Look, I know you're angry and I get it, but this wasn't just on me. Claire came to me. She was unhappy, and I was there for her." "Unhappy?" Daniel scoffs. "You think that justifies what you did? You knew she was married. You knew she was my wife." For a moment, Lucas says nothing, just stands there looking guilty and a little scared. Daniel feels a strange sense of satisfaction seeing the man squirm, but it does little to ease the pain inside him. "I'm sorry, Daniel," Lucas says finally, his voice quiet. "I didn't mean for things to get this far." "Well, they did," Daniel replies, his voice shaking with emotion. "And now, thanks to you, everything I've built, everything I've cared about, is falling apart." With that, he turns and walks away, leaving Lucas standing alone in the street. The encounter with Lucas brings Daniel a strange sense of closure, but it doesn't make things any easier. He's still left with the shattered pieces of his life, trying to figure out how to move forward. He spends more time with his friend Sarah, who becomes a source of comfort and support. She listens to him, offering words of encouragement, and slowly, he begins to feel like he's not completely alone. One evening, as they're sitting together, Sarah turns to him with a thoughtful look. "Daniel, I know this is hard, but maybe this is a chance for you to start fresh, to focus on yourself for once." He thinks about her words, letting them sink in. For years, he's poured everything into his marriage, putting Claire's happiness above his own. But now, with everything that's happened, he realizes that maybe it's time to put himself first. With a renewed sense of purpose, Daniel begins to make changes in his life. He starts focusing more on his passions, reconnecting with old friends, and even picking up new hobbies. It's not easy, and there are still moments when the pain hits him hard, but he's determined to rebuild. and slowly, bit by bit, he starts to feel like himself again. He realizes that while Claire's betrayal was devastating, it doesn't define him. He's stronger than he thought, capable of moving forward, even if the road ahead is uncertain. The story's not over yet, but he's finally on a path to healing. And maybe, just maybe, he'll find happiness again, this time on his own terms. If you're invested in Daniel's journey, make sure to give this video a thumbs up and let us know what you think in the comments below. Don't forget to subscribe if you want to see more stories like this. Months pass, and Daniel begins to settle into his new life. He's made an effort to move on, focusing on rebuilding himself and finding peace, but there's still a part of him that feels unfinished, as though he's waiting for closure that he hasn't quite received. He's been working on letting go, yet there's a lingering sense that the chapter with Claire isn't fully closed. One afternoon, while he's finishing up a work meeting, he receives an unexpected text message from Claire. She wants to meet, claiming that she has something important to tell him. His first instinct is to ignore it. After all, he's finally starting to feel some semblance of stability. But curiosity, and maybe a tiny sliver of unresolved feelings, gets the better of him. He agrees, setting the meeting for that evening at a quiet park on the edge of town. When he arrives, he finds Claire waiting by a bench, looking almost as nervous as she did the night he confronted her about Lucas. She's holding a small envelope in her hands, fidgeting with it as she sees him approach. "Thanks for coming," she says softly, her voice wavering. Daniel nods but doesn't respond, keeping his expression neutral. "I know I've said I'm sorry, and I know that doesn't change anything," she begins. "But there's something else I need to tell you. Something I should have told you from the beginning." Daniel's heart races as he wonders what else she could possibly have to say. He's about to ask when she hands him the envelope. "I should have given this to you months ago, but I was afraid. I thought if I did, I'd lose any chance of you ever forgiving me." He hesitates before opening it, but finally, he slides out the contents. A letter, handwritten in Claire's neat, familiar script. As he begins to read, the truth unfolds, hitting him like a punch to the gut. The letter reveals that Claire and Lucas's relationship wasn't just a fling. They had known each other from years ago, having met before she and Daniel ever began dating. In fact, they had been involved briefly back then, but it didn't work out, and they went their separate ways. She admits that when she saw him again, old feelings resurfaced, feelings she thought she'd buried a long time ago. "Seeing Lucas made me question everything," she says, her voice trembling. "And I know that's no excuse for what I did, but I felt lost, confused. I should have come to you. I should have talked to you. But instead, I made the worst choice possible." Daniel's emotions whirl as he processes the letter, his mind spinning with a mixture of anger, sadness, and betrayal. He thought he'd come to terms with her infidelity, but now he realizes there was so much more he didn't know. Secrets she kept from him, even during the supposed good times in their marriage. It makes him question everything. Their years together, the love he thought they shared, and the memories that feel tainted now. Claire looks at him, her eyes pleading. "I don't expect forgiveness, Daniel. I just needed you to know the full truth. I can't keep carrying this, and I felt you deserved to hear it, even if it's too late." Daniel stands there, unable to speak, his hands clenched around the letter. Finally, he takes a deep breath and looks at her. "I spent years building a life with you, trusting you, loving you. And now, I find out that all this time, you were holding on to someone else, some ghost from your past that you couldn't let go of." She begins to cry softly, but he can't bring himself to comfort her. Instead, he shakes his head, the weight of everything crashing down on him. "I deserve better than this, Claire. I deserve honesty. You should have told me from the start." With that, he turns and walks away, leaving her standing alone in the park, watching him disappear into the distance. The confrontation with Claire brings a strange sense of relief, a release of the pain and anger he's been carrying. He realizes that he doesn't need her closure anymore. He's already found it within himself. That evening, he returns home feeling lighter, as though he's finally laid the past to rest. But just when he thinks he's ready to fully move on, there's one more unexpected twist. One evening, Sarah calls him with urgency in her voice. She tells him she's heard something that she thinks he needs to know. Apparently, Lucas has been spotted around town, spreading rumors about Daniel, painting him as controlling and distant, blaming him for why Claire was unhappy. Word is spreading quickly, and people are starting to talk. Daniel feels a surge of anger but also a newfound determination. This time, he won't let someone else control the narrative of his life. He decides to confront Lucas once and for all, to put an end to the lies and reclaim his truth. He arranges to meet him at a nearby bar, a neutral ground where he can lay everything out on the table. When he arrives, he sees Lucas waiting, looking smug and confident, as if he holds all the power. But Daniel isn't the same man he was months ago. He's stronger, wiser, and ready to stand up for himself. Lucas, Daniel begins, his voice steady. I know what you've been saying about me, and I'm here to set the record straight. Lucas shrugs, his expression dismissive. Look, Daniel, if people are talking, maybe it's because they're seeing the truth. Claire wasn't happy with you. You need to accept that. Daniel steps closer, his gaze unyielding. The truth? The truth is that you came into my marriage and manipulated someone who was vulnerable. You knew exactly what you were doing, and now you're trying to make me out to be the villain. For a moment, Lucas falters, but he quickly regains his composure. Believe what you want, Daniel, but maybe you should take a look at yourself. Maybe Claire was just looking for something you couldn't give her. Daniel feels the anger boiling inside him, but instead of lashing out, he takes a deep breath, keeping his voice calm. I'm done with you, Lucas. I'm done with the lies, the manipulation, and the toxicity you've brought into my life. You can say whatever you want, but I'm moving forward, and I won't let you drag me down. With those final words, Daniel turns and leaves, walking away with a sense of triumph. He's finally free from the shadow that's loomed over him, ready to start a new chapter on his own terms. The encounter with Lucas marks a turning point for Daniel. It's a moment of empowerment, a chance to reclaim his life and let go of the pain that's held him back for so long. He realizes that he doesn't need validation from anyone else. His worth, his value, is something only he can define. In the days that follow, Daniel finds a renewed sense of purpose. He embraces his work with a fresh perspective, reconnecting with friends and finding joy in the simple things he once took for granted. And for the first time in a long time, he feels hopeful about the future. If you've been following Daniel's journey, don't forget to like, share, and comment on this video. And if you haven't yet, make sure to subscribe so you don't miss any more incredible stories like this one. After his final confrontation with Lucas, Daniel begins to feel a new strength rising within him. He's reached a point where he's no longer haunted by the betrayal. Instead, he's ready to take control and rebuild on his own terms. But just as he's finding his footing, an unexpected twist jolts him back into the turmoil he thought he'd escaped. One evening, as he's winding down after a long day at work, Daniel gets a phone call from an unknown number. He hesitates, almost ignoring it, but something compels him to pick up. On the other end of the line is Claire's mother, Margaret, her voice filled with concern. Daniel, I hate to bother you, but I thought you should know about Claire. She's not doing well, she says, her words trailing off. A sense of dread settles over him. What do you mean, Margaret? Is she okay? Margaret sighs, her voice tinged with worry. She's been struggling a lot lately. She won't tell me everything, but she seems lost, broken even. I know things between you two didn't end well, but I thought you should know. Maybe you could talk to her. Daniel is taken aback. He spent months moving on, finding closure, and building a new life. But this news stirs up old emotions he thought he'd buried. He's torn. Part of him wants to leave the past in the past, to let her deal with the consequences of her actions. Yet, another part of him feels a pang of empathy, remembering the woman he once loved, the woman he once built a life with. After a long, sleepless night, he decides he can't ignore it. He reaches out, arranging to meet Claire at a small cafe, a neutral place where they can talk without the ghosts of their shared home looming over them. When he arrives, he finds her sitting alone, staring blankly into a cup of coffee. She looks worn, more so than he's ever seen her, and it's clear that the last few months have taken a toll on her. "Claire," he says softly as he takes a seat across from her. She looks up, her eyes red-rimmed and filled with a vulnerability he hasn't seen in years. "Daniel," she whispers, her voice barely audible. "Thank you for coming." He nods, unsure of what to say, and they sit in silence for a few moments before she finally speaks. "I don't deserve your forgiveness, and I know that. But I've lost everything, Daniel. The life we had, the friends, even my own peace of mind. I can't even look at myself in the mirror anymore." Hearing this, Daniel feels a mix of emotions: anger, sadness, and a sense of pity. He doesn't owe her anything, yet he can see that she's genuinely remorseful, grappling with the consequences of her choices. "Claire," he says gently, "I can't fix this for you. You made your choices, and those choices hurt me in ways I never thought possible. But maybe this is a chance for you to find yourself, to understand what led you here and to become better." She looks down, her hands trembling as she clutches her coffee cup. "I don't know if I can do that," she admits, her voice barely a whisper. He leans forward, his voice steady. "You can. But it starts with accepting what you've done and taking responsibility for it. It's not easy, but it's the only way forward." They talk for a while longer, and by the end of it, Daniel feels a strange sense of peace. He realizes that he doesn't need her to be a part of his life anymore. He's let go of the bitterness, and now, he just feels a quiet sense of closure. As they part ways, he wishes her well, genuinely hoping she can find healing in her own time. It's a bittersweet moment, but as he watches her walk away, he knows he's finally free from the weight of their past. He's ready to move forward, fully, without the shadows of what once was. Days later, Daniel's newfound peace is disrupted by yet another unexpected development. Sarah, his friend and confidant through all of this, has been a constant source of support. But one evening, as they're sitting together after dinner, she drops a revelation that catches him completely off guard. "Daniel, there's something I need to tell you," she begins, her voice hesitant. "I've been wanting to tell you for a while, but I didn't know how." He looks at her, confused, and she takes a deep breath before continuing. "I think I have feelings for you. I know this might sound crazy, especially after everything you've been through, but I can't keep it to myself anymore." Daniel is stunned. Sarah has been his rock, his friend, and someone he could rely on during his darkest times. He never expected this, and he doesn't know how to respond. I don't know what to say," he stammers, trying to process her words. She smiles, but there's a hint of sadness in her eyes. "I know it's a lot to take in. I don't expect anything from you, Daniel. I just needed to be honest with you. I care about you deeply, and I thought you should know." Daniel takes a moment to gather his thoughts. He's grateful for Sarah's support, and he's grown closer to her than he ever expected. But he's still healing, still trying to find his footing after the emotional roller coaster of his marriage. "Sarah, you mean a lot to me," he says slowly, choosing his words carefully. "You've been there for me in ways I can't even begin to describe, but I'm still figuring things out. I don't want to rush into anything before I'm ready." She nods, understanding evident in her expression. "I get it, Daniel. I'm here for you no matter what. Take all the time you need." Their conversation leaves him with a lot to think about. He's not opposed to the idea of a future with Sarah. There's something about her that makes him feel safe, understood. But he's also cautious, wary of jumping into a new relationship before he's fully healed. For now, he decides to focus on himself, to continue building the life he wants, one step at a time. Over the next few weeks, Daniel throws himself into his work, dedicating his time and energy to projects that bring him joy and fulfillment. He reconnects with friends he'd lost touch with, finds new hobbies, and slowly begins to feel like his old self again. Stronger, more resilient, and with a clearer sense of purpose. In the end, he realizes that his journey has been one of rediscovery, a chance to rebuild not only his life but his sense of self. He's learned that he's capable of withstanding heartbreak, of facing betrayal head-on, and coming out on the other side stronger than before. And while he may not have all the answers about what the future holds, he's finally at peace with the unknown, ready to embrace whatever comes his way. And that brings us to the end of Daniel's journey, a story of heartbreak, resilience, and the power of self-discovery. If you've enjoyed this story, make sure to like, share, and let us know your thoughts in the comments. Don't forget to subscribe and stay tuned for more incredible stories here at Cheating Tales Lab. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one. In the days following his conversation with Sarah, Daniel finds himself feeling both grateful and a little overwhelmed. Her confession has stirred emotions in him that he wasn't fully prepared to confront. He spent so long focusing on healing and rebuilding his life that the thought of opening his heart again feels both thrilling and daunting. But he can't deny that the idea of a future with Sarah is appealing. After all, she's been a constant in his life, someone who's shown him kindness, understanding, and loyalty when he needed it most. But just when he's beginning to feel a sense of calm, as though he's finally finding solid ground, his world is rocked yet again. Late one evening, he receives a knock on his door. To his surprise, it's Claire, looking more distressed than he's ever seen her. "Daniel, I know I shouldn't be here," she begins, her voice shaking. "But I didn't know who else to turn to." Her sudden appearance stirs up a mixture of emotions: anger, pity, and a reluctant sense of concern. Despite everything, Daniel can't just turn her away, not when she's standing there looking so broken. "Come in," he says, leading her into the living room. She takes a seat, glancing around with a mixture of nostalgia and sadness. "This place, it hasn't changed much," she murmurs, a faint smile on her lips. But then her expression darkens, and Daniel can see that something is weighing heavily on her mind. "What's going on, Claire?" he asks, keeping his tone neutral. She hesitates, wringing her hands as though struggling to find the right words. Finally, she looks up at him, her eyes filled with a desperation he's never seen before. "It's Lucas," she says, her voice barely a whisper. Well, he hasn't exactly been the man I thought he was." Daniel's heart skips a beat, a flicker of dread settling in his chest. He had his suspicions about Lucas, but he never imagined that things would take this turn. "What do you mean, Claire?" She takes a shaky breath, her gaze distant. "After everything fell apart with us, I thought Lucas would be there for me, that he'd be different. But I was wrong. He's manipulative, controlling, and now I see that he used me to get back at you." He knew exactly what he was doing from the start. Daniel feels a surge of anger, but this time, it's not directed at Claire. He knew Lucas was no good, but hearing this only confirms his suspicions. "Claire, why are you telling me this now?" She looks at him, tears welling up in her eyes. "Because I wanted to say that I'm sorry, truly sorry, for everything. I didn't realize how much I was hurting you until I felt that same kind of betrayal myself. And I know it's too late, but I needed you to know." For a moment, Daniel is silent, letting her words sink in. He sees the regret in her eyes, the pain she's carrying, and he realizes that while he may never fully forgive her, he's found a way to let go of the anger. "Claire," he says quietly, "I appreciate you coming to me with this, and I hope that you find the strength to move forward, to make peace with yourself. But I can't go back to the way things were." She nods, a look of acceptance on her face. "I understand. I just needed to tell you, and to ask for your forgiveness." Daniel pauses, then nods, feeling a surprising sense of relief. "I forgive you, Claire, but forgiveness doesn't mean things can go back to how they were. We both need to move on." With that, Claire stands, offering him a small, grateful smile before she turns and leaves. As the door closes behind her, Daniel feels a strange mixture of closure and liberation. The chapter with Claire is finally closed, and he knows that he's truly free to move forward. But as Daniel finds peace, Lucas's behavior takes a darker turn. Word spreads around town about Lucas's actions and the way he manipulated both Claire and Daniel. It's clear that Lucas is feeling the weight of his actions, and instead of accepting responsibility, he becomes more erratic, lashing out at those around him. Friends and colleagues begin distancing themselves from him, and he quickly becomes an outcast in the community. One night, as Daniel is locking up his office, he's startled to see Lucas waiting for him outside, his face contorted with anger. There's a dangerous glint in his eyes, one that sends a chill down Daniel's spine. "You think you're better than me, don't you, Daniel?" Lucas sneers, his voice dripping with bitterness. "You think you can just walk away and leave me to pick up the pieces?" Daniel takes a step back, trying to remain calm. "Lucas, you brought this on yourself. I never wanted things to turn out this way, but you made your choices." Lucas lets out a harsh laugh, his fists clenched at his sides. "You think you've won, but you haven't. You're still the same pathetic guy who lost everything, who couldn't keep his own wife happy." Daniel feels a surge of anger but refuses to let Lucas get under his skin. "I don't need to prove anything to you, Lucas. You're the one who's left alone, and that's because of your own actions." For a moment, it looks like Lucas is going to lash out, his body tense and seething with rage. But then he seems to deflate, his shoulders slumping as he realizes that he has nothing left to fight for. Without another word, he turns and walks away, disappearing into the night. As Daniel watches him go, he feels a mixture of pity and relief. Lucas's downfall is a stark reminder of the consequences of betrayal, manipulation, and deceit. And while Daniel's life is far from perfect, he knows that he's taken the higher road, choosing integrity and forgiveness over bitterness and revenge. In the days that follow, Daniel finds himself more at peace than he's been in a long time. He's reconnected with friends, thrown himself into his work, and found joy in the simple things. Sarah continues to be a source of support, though they've both agreed to take things slow, allowing Daniel the space he needs to heal fully. One evening, as he's watching the sunset from his porch, Sarah joins him, a warm smile on her face. They sit together in comfortable silence, watching as the sky shifts from orange to deep purple. And in that moment, Daniel realizes that he's finally ready to embrace a new chapter, one that's filled with hope, possibility, and the promise of true happiness. The journey hasn't been easy, and the scars of betrayal will always be there, reminders of the past. But Daniel has learned that he's stronger than he ever knew, capable of moving forward, of finding peace, and even of opening his heart again. If you've followed Daniel's journey, thank you for joining us on this emotional roller coaster. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe if you want to hear more powerful stories like this one. And as always, feel free to share your thoughts in the comments below. We'd love to hear from you. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time here on Cheating Tales LABI. In the days after his final encounter with Lucas, Daniel finds a profound sense of relief settling over him. It's as though the last shadows of the past have finally lifted, leaving him free to truly embrace his future. His life, once clouded by betrayal and heartbreak, has transformed into something hopeful and filled with possibility. With Lucas's departure from his life, the drama and turmoil fade into the background, allowing Daniel to focus on what really matters: his happiness, his personal growth, and his future. He's come a long way from the man he was when this journey began, and now he can look back without bitterness, feeling only a sense of gratitude for the lessons learned. Daniel also realizes just how much he's grown. The heartbreak and anger, once so overwhelming, have become sources of strength, teaching him resilience, self-respect, and the importance of boundaries. He's no longer defined by the pain of betrayal but by his capacity to rise above it, to rebuild and find purpose within himself. It's a powerful transformation, and it's one that has left him with a newfound sense of peace. Sarah has continued to be a constant in his life, her quiet support helping him through every step of this journey. She's been patient, giving him the space he needed to heal while also showing him what genuine, selfless friendship and maybe even love looks like. As their friendship deepens, he begins to wonder if, just maybe, the next chapter of his life will include her in a more meaningful way. One evening, as they're sitting together on his porch, Daniel decides to open up about his feelings. They talk about everything they've been through, the challenges they've faced, and the ways they've both grown. And for the first time, he feels ready to explore what could be a new beginning with Sarah. It's a gentle, quiet moment, one filled with the kind of hope and anticipation he thought he'd lost forever. They agree to take things slowly, honoring the friendship that's brought them this far while exploring the possibility of something deeper. As for Claire, Daniel hears that she's taken time for herself, moving to a new city to start fresh and rebuild her life. Her journey, like his, is one of introspection and growth. Though they haven't stayed in touch, Daniel wishes her well, knowing that she, too, is trying to find peace in her own way. He hopes she can learn from the mistakes they both made and find a new path forward. With the chaos behind him, Daniel begins to focus on his own passions, throwing himself into projects and pursuits that bring him joy and fulfillment. He joins a local hiking group, reconnecting with nature and finding peace in the stillness of the mountains and forests. He reconnects with old friends, makes new ones, and even takes up photography, capturing the world around him with a new sense of appreciation. In time, Daniel's journey from heartbreak to healing becomes a testament to his inner strength. He's no longer the man defined by someone else's actions, but a man who has found purpose and happiness within himself. Through it all, he's learned the value of self-respect, the importance of honesty, and the healing power of forgiveness. Not just for others, but for himself. The final scene finds Daniel on a hiking trail, camera in hand, surrounded by breathtaking views of rolling hills and golden fields. He pauses, taking in the beauty around him, feeling a deep sense of gratitude for the journey that's brought him here. The air is fresh, filled with the scent of pine, and a gentle breeze rustles through the trees. He lifts his camera, capturing the moment, feeling a sense of peace and fulfillment he's never known before. As he lowers the camera, he realizes that, for the first time, he feels whole. The pain, the loss, the betrayal, all of it has led him to this moment, to this place where he finally feels at home within himself. He smiles, knowing that the journey isn't over. It's only just beginning, and he's ready for whatever comes next. Thank you for joining us on this emotional journey with Daniel. His story is a reminder that, no matter how dark things may seem, there's always a way to find light, to rebuild, and to emerge stronger on the other side. If you enjoyed this story, please give it a thumbs up and leave a comment below with your thoughts. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel to stay tuned for more powerful and moving stories just like this one. Until next time, thank you for watching Cheating Tales Lab, and we'll see you in the next video.